You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing: to protect ourselves, our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
to watch it happen. I get to actually, I'm here as an instructor, and I get to actually help do that in molding their minds and molding their advocacy, and it is so absolutely amazing. So what boring things have you been doing firearms related in Ohio there, Rob?
Oh, not much. I looked at some gun shops to see if there's something I couldn't live without, but so far I'm so far this year I haven't bought anything new.
Okay, so far this year.
Big purchase.
It's only February. It's only the middle of February, and I haven't bought anything new. I've been looking at people's stuff, and I'm jonesing for some stuff. But one of the things that I have been watching is not even gun related stuff, but the importance of fixed blades, folding blades, flashlights, other tools besides firearms for your personal defense and for your safety and your family's safety. So if you can't carry a gun, what else do you carry? How else do you train? What else do you do with that?
You know, it's funny, as when I was in Florida last week, I left my flashlight and my knife with you because I wasn't flying in a way I could bring them back home. So
right.
I didn't realize how much I use that flashlight.
I was like, how do you want to get it home? Because he was zooming home, no checked bags. He was all good. And so when I come home, I'll have it.
I got a new knife for Christmas, so I'm not too worried about the knife. It's got an Emerson Wave on it, and katana type style blade. It's extremely fast coming out, and
okay, so you need to explain those words in English to our folks.
Well, an Emerson Wave has a little groove cut in the blade, and as you draw it from your pocket, it catches the seam of your pocket and deploys automatically. Mm-hmm. So as it comes out, it flips open and locks in place, so it's ready for action. It's amazingly fast. Okay. You just got to make sure you keep everything out of the way, or you end up cutting your coat off or something.
You keep you out of the way. Is that what you're saying?
One time, me and Mike Hazachek, my friend, we were training, and he drew his knife and cut the cord on his timer.
I remember that. It was so fast, it's like, poof, now I don't have a timer because the cord got cut on the way of the draw. So right. You have to pay attention. You have to pay attention.
Right, it was just so super fast, it dropped the timer right then.
That is pretty darn funny. So what other features does this knife have? And
well, it's got a ring for your finger to lock in, and then it's as you draw it automatically deploys, and then it's got a locking blade, and it has a heavy duty katana style blade, with like the 45-degree cut on the front. So
okay.
Instead of it going to a normal point like a regular pocket knife, this one goes up to kind of a blunt 45-degree angle.
Okay. Interesting. So we haven't talked to our folks since you were in Florida, right? So you have. So we haven't talked anything about your trip.
We went down there for the Florida Carry event, and it was actually very interesting. They had a lot of good speakers. There was some different lawyers talking on different subjects. They're looking forward to the fact that they expect Florida to get constitutional carry. We're seeing a lot of stuff in the news where they're saying that DeSantis has kind of painted himself into a corner and he has to pass constitutional carry this time.
Well, the interesting part is one of our guests coming up in the next hour is Eric Friday, who is a lawyer and who testified in Tallahassee for this. And some people are like, it's not really constitutional carry, it's permitless carry, because constitutional carry, no rules. There we go. 27 words define how you can carry.
I've been wondering, because they say 25 states have constitutional carry, but can you carry a rifle? Can you carry a shotgun? Is there any rules at all involved with the thing? Can a 10-year-old carry the gun?
Here's what we've been asking, and I think what we're finding out is, depending on the state, did they truly pass constitutional carry or did they pass permitless carry? If they passed permitless carry, it says the rules that applied for their concealed carry permit apply without the permit. And so all of a sudden it becomes defining handguns and that type stuff. If it's truly constitutional and constitutional carry, then it involves long guns and shotguns and those other types of things. But at this point, this one, Florida does not even include open carry. So it really is a permitless carry thing. Now, Ohio has open carry already, and then it has our constitutional carry, or in Ohio's manner, it's permitless carry. So the open carry part of the Ohio bill would be the part that I would look at to say, does that include long guns?
Right, but the other part you have is when you're reading Bruin, and that they're showing you this 1790s era law passing. At that point, there was no age restrictions on anything. It was up to the parents as to whether they were the children were adult enough to have a gun or handle one or do anything. So, are we going to go back to what the parents think is the best, or how we're going to handle that, I wonder?
Yeah, and see, a lot of what's going to be an issue with all of this is that even though the Bruin case said 1791 in text, history, or tradition, you have to sue to lock that in. And so that there are so many lawsuits. What did they say? 240 citations where Bruin has been cited in future current lawsuits from June of 2022 to now.
And I would imagine there's another 250 that are standing by waiting for the opportunity for someone to stand up and say, this has happened to me.
This is coming, yeah, is who has standing and what's happening. So one of the things, as you're reading around in some of the different states where they have their Second Amendment pages, like on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and they're specifically looking for people from, right now I just saw somebody looking for people in Pennsylvania that are 17, 18, and 19 that are willing to be that have standing, that are law-abiding citizens that want to have a permit. And so what they don't want to do is they don't want to pick candidates. So they're asking people, would you like to be party to this lawsuit? Would you like to be involved? Would you like to make history? And and they can't pick the ones who are right at the edge where they know it'll take a year to get through the courts, and those people will age out, and then the case will be moot. So they need to pick them at the extreme youngest line so that they'll stay in the age bracket while it works its way through the courts. Because we've seen that where the courts use the age limit and then just go, oh, yeah, it doesn't apply to them anymore. So, yeah, sorry, we're not playing there. So it's kind of interesting. Our show is going to be kind of a little not as smooth as usual, because generally I can reach over and smack Rob on his knee and make him talk like the organ grinder's monkey, but it's not happening this time. So when we come back, we're going to do the history section. Rob's going to fill us in on what history we're going to be talking about, and then we're going to hit some of the news, and then remember, next hour we're going to have a couple different guests, and so we'll be back right after this message.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a Rangemaster certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back, and I'm going to hand this over to Rob. What are we talking about history-wise?
I was going to talk about the American caliber of .45 revolver or pistol caliber, because we started out during the Civil War with the .44 Colts primarily, and when the cartridge guns came around in 1873, they wanted almost to mimic the same ballistics as if they could. So the Colt 1873 Single Action Army was what they picked at that point in .45 caliber. It was good for a year, and then for some reason the government bought Smith & Wesson revolvers at the same time, and they found out that the Colt cartridge didn't fit into the Smith & Wesson revolver, although they were both .45 caliber. So they remedied this by going to .45 Smith & Wesson is the cartridge that the government used from about 1875 till 1892. They retired the .45 caliber, and they got Colt 38 longs at that time. They realized during the Philippine insurrection that from 1899 to 1902 that the 38 didn't have the knockdown power of the .45, and so they put this guy in charge of looking at new pistol cartridges, and his name was John Thompson. And Thompson realized that the 45 killed better than the 38 did. So they went to John Browning and asked him about making a 45 that was ballistically the same as the original 45 Smith & Wesson Schofield round. So they wanted a 230 grain bullet at about 850 feet a second out of a 5-inch barrel. He had been working on a pistol for the Colt Company in the 1905 model that had a 45 smokeless rimless round. So it fit the bill perfectly. They just changed the bullet weight from 200 grain up to 230, and he was turned it into, and for the 1907 pistols trials, they decided they liked the pistol, but they didn't like the fact that it didn't have a safety and it had a couple other things. They he made a couple changes, and actually he changed everything except for he didn't put a manual safety on it, and he issued it, he gave it to them in 1910. They liked everything about it, but they wanted a manual safety, and so the 1911 is what we have today with the manual safety on it. He thought that the grip safety was plenty good enough. If you squeeze it, it goes off. If you don't squeeze it, it doesn't go off. But they said not to. It's funny because today in a combat pistol, we don't really want a manual safety. You like that when you squeeze it, it goes off, and when you don't squeeze it, it doesn't go off.
It doesn't go off. Isn't that funny how time circles around, and it's like what was a good idea is now not a good idea, and the mix.
Right.
But so you've given us kind of the history, and
The
so when you
45
had
is.
Okay,
It's
45
kinda funny because
ACP
there's some-
is really what it is then, right?
But well, they originally called it the 45 smokeless rimless, and then when Colt started issuing a lot of automatic pistols, the ACP stands for Automatic Colt Pistol.
Okay.
And so because Colt was buying almost every Browning design, everything was just named Automatic Colt Pistol at that point.
Well, it's so much
Then
better than
later on-
smokeless rimless, you know.
Well, and then later on, like the Tommy gun come out with the stuff, they didn't really want to put ACP on it, so they just called it the Auto, so 45 Auto. So its name keeps changing as it goes. And in European countries, it's called an 11.43 by 23.
Wait, so 45 ACP is called an 11.43 by what? 23?
23, yep.
Oh, so
the
we could
11.43 is the diameter.
We could be sneaky. Okay, so we could be sneaky when we're talking about our 45 ACP, or we could look like we're ever so educated in calling it by its European name.
But the 11.43 is the diameter of the bullet, and then the 23 is how long the case is, and it helps define the one from the other. Kind of iffy as to whether there's other ones that match that, because there's a lot of other 45s that they've used over the years trying to fit everything together.
Okay. So now the issue is, so you're telling us, kind of what happened, what was the history. So there are, before the 1911, there are 1910s out there, and there are 1906s?
1905s.
1905s. Okay, so folks can, if they're looking, there are some, not a ton, but there are some, right?
Right, and there was Cimarron was making a copy of a 1910 for a while. I don't know if they still do or not. It basically looks like a 1911, has a different, where the point on the back where your grip safety hinges is a little abbreviated, and it doesn't have a manual safety on it.
Okay. Huh.
But if you have an original 1910, they're super rare and quite pricey, and 1905s are also, they're not quite as rare, but they are quite pricey.
So when you say rare and pricey, what kind of, if somebody's looking?
I would think of the 1910s, there's probably less than 400 of them were built. The 1905s, you're probably looking at maybe 1,000 of them were built.
Okay. So yeah, indeed, as in rarity. And then the 1911s, there is such a plethora of them that... Right,
and they've been made by different manufacturers because the government stuck their nose in and they needed them as fast as they could get. So there's some of those that are quite rare too, like Singer Sewing Machines. There's a North American company that made a couple, I think they were Canadian, they made a short run of them. I don't even know how many I don't know if they made 20 or 500 or something, but they're also quite, thousands of dollars if you have one.
Okay. So, when did Singer build them, and why did Singer build them? Fill people in. I think this is so interesting when you really start to talk about those pieces.
During the Second World War, when they started to tool up, they were not only tooling up for the American market, but the English also didn't have much in the way of manufacturing. So they were trying to fill these Lend-Lease orders, and so they would go to other companies and try to get them to set up to do things. And the Singer Sewing Machine Company was originally sent the prints for the 1911. They made the first run of them. The quality was so good they pulled them off of that project and put them on northern bomb sites, and so that's why the quality was really good. Like Remington typewriter and stuff like this built some also, and Rockola Jukebox made carbines. A lot of different companies were able to make guns for the government.
I couldn't imagine having a carbine that actually said jukebox on it, but there you go. So, folks, we'll be back right after this commercial break. Stay tuned.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Suffolcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
Okay, so we are back, and let me tell you, there's so much stuff in the news, absolutely so much stuff in the news, but this one I think is a really interesting story. Rob, did you hear where the Lucky Gunner lawsuit is over? What are you doing?
What's who doing?
So we're back on the air, and I don't know what you're doing with your...
I'm listening to you talk. That's what I'm listening
Well,
to.
it sounds like you're sawing your hearing protection over a big saw. Sorry, everybody. Remember, we're siblings. This would be the sibling battle. There we go.
No,
but anyhow,
okay.
stop
I had
wiggling.
not heard that. So whatever you got to say, it'll be my first time hearing it.
It'll be your first time hearing it. No, so Lucky Gunner was there was a let's see, get back to the facts here. So there was a shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, and then Everytown Law. So Everytown for gun control, Everytown for gun safety, Everytown for Michael that has money from Michael Bloomberg. They actually have a law practice. I didn't know that, but just so now we all know that Bloomberg has funded not only, so it's an anti-gun law firm that files lawsuits, and so Lucky Gunner, so it was through the Brady Center, but Lucky Gunner was actually won the lawsuit, but they were sued, and their goal is, their words, that the lawsuit's goal was their stated goal. So I guess it's the lawsuit's stated goal, not Lucky Gunner's stated goal. Their stated goal was to put us out of business, Lucky Gunner says, and we believe, and to outlaw the sale of ammunition online by judicial decree. So that was really the big thing, is they were saying, Lucky Gunner, an online ammo sale company, we want to stop anybody from being able to order ammunition online and have it come to their house.
Well, that's one of the things is they try to, they keep saying, well, the Second Amendment protects the gun, but it doesn't protect the shooting range or the ammunition or any of that stuff. And the gun is of no value without ammunition. So they were trying their best to go after that end of the stuff. So I don't know how it, I've been told that as part of the Second Amendment, the accoutrements that it takes for the gun to actually function are protected under the Second Amendment along with the actual gun itself.
Right. So it's crazy. So and the thing is that our Second Amendment does us no good, absolutely no good at all, if we can't get the supplies, the gear, the gunpowder. They already started to try to make mining lead and smelting lead in the United States illegal. They have gone after brass and the reclaiming of it and reusing it. That gunpowder and the manufacture of gunpowder in the United States and so now they were tearing down this piece.
They were trying to also put markers in the gunpowder and stuff, and some kind of, I don't know how they were going to do it, but they were wanting to make a primer only have a shelf date of, say, 2 years, and then it goes dead on its own. I don't know how they would plan on doing that, but I can tell you that a primer today is good for about 100 years without a problem.
Right. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. The cool part, actually, of this lawsuit and this story is that the judge awarded Lucky Gunner $111,000, so almost $112,000. Here's their round number, $111,971.10. But
they probably spent almost all that on lawyer fees.
Oh, so they spent $150,000, they said. So
right, so they really didn't win anything. They just They
it
just
didn't
covered
cost
some
them.
of their cost.
It didn't cost them nearly as much as it could have to defend themselves. So one of the things is I'm going to tell all y'all that Lucky Gunner Ammunition Sales is open for business, and because the Brady campaign went after them, I urge each and every one of you to go check your safes, go check your storage areas, go check to see if you need ammo, and then consider throwing some love in the direction of the Lucky Gunner Company, because that's the only way that we're going to fight back.
Why check? Just buy some bullets. You know you need them, or you're going to.
You're going to need them. Yeah, you do need them. You're going to need them, or you should need them, because you should be out training and shooting and doing all of that.
Buy some 22s and take some of the neighborhood kids with you. Let them shoot for a while. Everybody will have a good time.
You are so absolutely so right about that. We as adults, it's our responsibility to be good stewards to the future, and to make sure that the youth understand the roles and responsibilities of the Constitution, of the Second Amendment, and make it so that they don't go, ooh, guns. My mom said I need to stay away from them. You need to involve them. You need to cause them to handle them and be trained and be knowledgeable and be safe and have it as an enjoyable thing.
But think about when you were a kid that you got a chance to go shooting sometime. It was great fun, and it wasn't that it happened all the time. So it was a I guess a red letter day on the calendar when you got to go shoot somebody else's bullets.
Well, shoot somebody else's bullets, and frankly, it's a lot of family time, so that you can go spend time with mom or with dad on the range, and they're focused on you.
We used to tell about the fact that we had one gun between us, and we would shoot. One guy got to shoot till he missed, and then the next guy got. So it made you want to be a better shot, so that you got to control the gun longer, and that's a good game for a while till everybody decides they need a new gun.
Right, but no, it is a great way for upping your skill set. Whatever that is, so that however long the kid shoots, you just get to kind of keep it moving and challenge them. And you and I both see that
you have to shoot. You have to shoot just so you get to stay ahead of them, because pretty soon they'll be able to outshoot you. Remember, they can still see what they're shooting at.
There is a vision difference. Well, I'll go with that. But the other part is that if you shoot friendly competitively against someone who is a good shooter, you get better. So you don't want to shoot against somebody that you can beat all the time. You want somebody who can beat you, and so that your skills get honed and that you work on it and you practice and you train and you up your game while they're upping theirs.
There's also a spot where sometimes by watching someone else, you might learn something new about hold or stance or something that's going to make you a better shot, and you didn't have to ask any questions or nothing. Just watching them go was good enough.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, tell folks about, because you make the statement a lot about how you learn as much in a class that you're teaching as you think that the students do.
Well, I learn a lot from people, and listening to some of them, some things you learn what not to do, some things you learn what to do. Sometimes I've had the most unlikely person show you something that after you go out and practice a little bit, all of a sudden makes you a better shot or a faster at what you're doing. And you got it from a 75-year-old woman who was just doing it because it was easier for her to manipulate her hand or something.
There's a lot to that. They say in work that if you want to see something done kind of in the smoothest, easiest way, hire a lazy person, because they will figure out how to cut every corner to make it go as smooth and as calm as it can be.
Right, but you get someone who's naturally stiff or has some issues. They'll show you some shortcuts also. And it's funny because we videotape ourselves, like when we're doing shooting move drills and drawing and fire stuff like this, and you can see that you move in a funny direction or something. And if you take that out of your program, all of a sudden it speeds you up without really doing anything. But you quit flapping your wings in between shots or something.
Well, there is that. There's all this extra motion, all this extra movement, things that there are people who are amazingly fast, and it's because they cut out all the churn. They cut out all the excess motions, and they figured out what they have to do to get their gear, get it accessed, get connected to it, and then get it in action. And you don't do that just by buying a gun, buying 6 bullets, setting it on the shelf, and hoping that when things go south, that you've got all the skills you need.
I've watched enough television. I know how it works.
We've seen that. We've really seen students be like, I don't think I need this many bullets. When they come or when they buy a new gun, it's like, I don't think I need do I really need 50 bullets? And it's like today and another 50 tomorrow and 50 the day after. And you're not going to learn by not manipulating and handling and shooting and understanding what your firearm does and doesn't do, and when it does it and doesn't do it, and if it doesn't do it, why it doesn't do it.
Well, people, sometimes they complain about what a gun costs, but then when you look at how much money it costs you in ammo to get to where you're proficient with that gun, it's like buying a Ferrari and not buying gasoline because it's too expensive.
It's too expensive. So we're just going to let it sit here in the driveway and rust away, but we own it, and there is that. I just think that there's so many people who are like, well, when something goes south, I have a gun and I should be good. Should be, could be, maybe. How about you practice with that so you know what it does, what it doesn't do, how it works, all of those kinds of things.
Why it doesn't work.
Why it doesn't work, when it doesn't work. So, yeah, all of that. So we'll be back right after these messages. You're listening to Eye on the Target Radio with Rob and Amanda.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, folks, we are back for our final segment of this hour show. So, did you see, Rob, where the domestic violence case in Kentucky was? Where did I take that? A federal judge in Kentucky struck down the law that bans subjects of domestic violence orders from buying and or possessing firearms. And so what they said was that domestic violence, they have taken people and said, you know, you've got a domestic violence charge against you. It's the only place where you have not, it doesn't have due process, you have not been adjudicated as guilty, you have been charged, and that is it, and they strip your rights from you. And there is a judge in Kentucky who said, no, you can't do that. So did you see it?
I'm seeing more and more of this stuff because of the fact that because the Lautenberg Act doesn't actually say you have to be convicted of a crime, you just have to have been accused of one.
So this means this judge is going to take down the Lautenberg Act. Right now, the Eastern District of Kentucky is the only place that it applies, but they can cite it everywhere else, kind of like they're doing Bruin. But
right, and
does that mean that the next step is
if they want to fight it to the top, it'll eventually go to the Supreme Court. But Bruin's going to take that out also with the rest of the stuff that it's doing.
Right. So I think it's interesting, and it's like, okay, where did we get to that? How did we get to that? And nobody wants a wife beater to be able to have a gun, but there are so many times when the charges for domestic violence are, we're getting a divorce and it's easier to accuse him of this or red flag him for that or accuse her of that because if I can get her disarmed.
Right, a lot of times they just do that first thing even though nobody caused any kind of a concern about it. They just automatically file that paperwork. And so for you to lose your rights, even though it wasn't even part of the question in the beginning, they're going through a lot of this stuff and thinking it through. We were talking to some of the lawyers at the Florida Carry event, and they were saying that Bruin is so big, and I said the reason why Bruin is so big is because we've kind of ignored the Second Amendment for 200 years, And so it just allowed them to put whatever laws they thought they needed into effect. And eventually, now we're going to roll all these back to a time where had they started when, say, Dred Scott was put into effect during the Civil War and said no at that point, we wouldn't have had all this stuff piled on since then to have to roll back.
I mean, when you really look at it, the Heller decision, the decision that said that you have a right to own a gun and have it in your house, did not make it through the Supreme Court and was not decided until June of 2008. So think about that. Think about when the Second Amendment was written. Think about when they finally made this decision on Heller and all the laws that got put in place in the middle of that, because there was nothing at the Supreme Court level that told these courts that they had to stand down, back up, and not keep violating different people's rights. And think about how many people didn't survive because they've been disarmed, because they've been able to weaponize laws and use them against the American citizens, against the population, in the name of community safety, when it really wasn't making the community any safer, because they weren't doing anything about the criminals. They were only doing something about the law abiding.
It's kind of funny because I asked the same question about the Europeans during the 1890s, well, say 1870s to 1890s. A lot of firearms technology that we have today was developed in Europe. And after the First World War, we pretty much put the brakes on them doing any kind of testing or sales or anything like this. So how many good ideas were never brought to light due to the fact that the Europeans weren't allowed to use firearms or have them or anything?
I mean, if you're not handling them, I mean, think about it. You don't come up with creative technology on things that you don't use. If you're not handling it on a daily basis, if you're not thinking about it, if you're not manipulating it, you're not thinking about it. So you don't have any ideas. So lost technology, lost opportunities have really happened, because look at how minimal the changes have been in firearms and firearm design in the last 100 years.
Right, and it's funny because some of the stuff that in the last, say, 30 years that they come out and say is new and exciting is really just reheated stuff that Steyer had in 1907 or Clements had in 1921 or something, and we don't really know what's new because it's just the same old stuff. Just computerized machinery today make it more efficient to manufacture it that way than it was at the time that it was originally invented.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, they found that it was not cost effective to try to make it then, just because there was a guy trying to dial and crank a machine, and it wouldn't be the same each time. So tolerances and fit and finish and all of those things were so critical and key in making a firearm. And then so the artistry that was involved in it to be able to make it so skilled craftsmen could do it. Now CNCs and numerically controlled and computer controlled machines can make things repeatable in an amazing way that people 50 years ago couldn't even imagine. Right.
It's funny in some ways and tragic in others that this is how it goes. But today we have the best of manufacturing available to us. So if we have good ideas, it's really nothing for them to tool up and build the stuff.
Mm-hmm. So the question is do we have new ideas, or do we just have some kids reading history books and going, look at this. I think we could do this again.
Well, this is the thing with Rob Pincus and his group of gun builders that are building them at home and go out and test them out. They're not thinking the same way as major manufacturer is. And so you may not get a finished product from them, but you may get a part of a locking system or something that no one has thought of before that could be incorporated into a new design.
Because they're thinking about things in a completely different direction. And so if all the rules are out the window, you can then make, think about it in cooking. All the rules are out the window. You can now make a donut with maple frosting and bacon. Right? Those two things don't go together, but when they do, it's amazing. But the first person who decided to put bacon on a donut is pretty much the same kind of thing that we're looking for in that creative young engineers and entrepreneurs and enthusiasts.
And the company who's going to make 100,000 of these doesn't want to try something too off the edge, but somebody who's making one, they don't care. They'll try it.
I've got nothing but time, and I could either be doing this or watching a John Wick movie. So what am I going to be doing? Exactly. So, folks, I want to give you the heads up that when we come back on hour number 2, we are going to have Eric Friday, and Eric Friday is part of the Florida Carry group, but he's also part of the group that went to Tallahassee to testify. And our DC Project folks were also there. So I've gotten some stories from it from their vantage point. I want to get Eric's vantage point. We'll share that. And then after that, we have Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories. We'll be right back.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, welcome to Hour 2 of Eye on the Target Radio with Rob and Amanda. Amanda is at WAFT, Western Orlando Firearms Training it's actually in Groveland, Florida, so it's kind of west of Orlando, ergo the name. But it is where your family's trained. It's an amazing place. And Rob, on the other hand, is in Ohio. So we're doing a split screen, split show, and a little bit of that. And then we have a guest. And so our guest for this segment is Eric Friday. And Eric Friday is an attorney, and he is a Second Amendment advocate out of Florida. And so we met him, spent some time, and talked to him again. I mean, we've met and interacted with him multiple times. And we talked to him at the Florida event, so the Freedom Fest that happened last weekend. And then he and some of the DC Project folks and some of the Florida Carry folks, and he'll tell us who, but a variety of people went to testify in Tallahassee about the permitless carry or constitutional carry bill that is trying to get passed in Florida. So, Eric, thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Amanda, thank you so much. I have been wanting to do this show for a while now.
There you go. So that's on everybody's bucket list, I'm just going to say.
It's been on mine. I need to do this, and then I got to get on with Rob Morse sometime. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So Self-Defense Gun Stories is one of those. But he only puts on... are you an instructor also?
I am not. I am not an instructor. That's one of those things that I really keep meaning to get around to. But no, not an instructor yet.
Okay, then I'm going to tell you that Rob Morse in Self-Defense Gun Stories is probably not going to happen. But he's also co-host on Polite Society Podcast. That's show on Monday nights. That show on Monday nights, we can hook you up.
We need to make that happen sometime soon.
We can do it. So tell us what happened in Tallahassee, and tell folks how optimistic you feel for where we're going.
Well, so we had the hearing last week, first legislative committee hearing of this permitless carry bill. And, unfortunately, this has been way too long coming, and it's still not what it needs to be. Florida, for all it was originally one of the leaders in the gun rights movement in 1987, has fallen way too far behind. But we have a proposal now to have permitless concealed carry only, and so that's what this bill is about. And we have high optimism it's going to pass, but unfortunately, it's still not going to include open carry because we just have too many people in Florida that are opposed to open carry, and it's for excuses, not reasons. The Florida Sheriff's Association has long been an opponent of open carry, and so are certain corporations in Florida. And sooner or later, they're going to have to learn a lesson, and hopefully, if we can't get it through legislation, we'll get it through litigation.
Okay. So, the interesting thing is that, Rob and I lived through Ohio as they passed certain bills. So let's talk about their concealed carry. When Ohio passed their concealed carry, the song and dance that you had to do was pretty arduous for being a concealed carry holder. And over time, they modified it to where it's now just a really, really well thought out, well oiled bill. But it took a while to get there. Is that what Florida expects now, is pass this and then fix it?
No. So Florida, in '87, Florida kind of led the country in creating concealed carry. And so most every state that became concealed carry after Florida was based on our model of a training requirement and a list of prohibited places. And, a training requirement in my mind is not a constitutionally valid requirement. Anytime you give the government some ability to say, who does or doesn't get to exercise a right, you automatically run into problems. Background checks, for example. Yeah, we created background checks back in the 90s, but now the Florida Department of Law Enforcement has interpreted our background check law as allowing them up to an unlimited amount of time to decide whether to approve or deny a background check. So, again, when government has discretion, we have a problem. Just last year, I sued the Department of Agriculture over our licensing law because they decided that they could ban people from getting licenses, and it was our burden to prove that we were entitled to the license, not their burden to prove we weren't entitled. And so they were making up felonies that had been that the courts had overturned, or that a governor had given a restoration of rights on. And so, well, we don't know that restoration of rights is valid. You have to prove it's valid. And no, you have to prove that it's not valid. But they also wouldn't even give you a hearing at which to prove it wasn't valid. So that was the kind of problem we were dealing with in Florida. And then this started under a Republican administration and continued under the recent Democrat administration, and I just found out it's continuing under the new Republican administration. So that's the fundamental problem, is anytime the government has authority over deciding who does or doesn't get to exercise a right, you're going to have a problem.
Okay. So what do you think's going to happen with this?
I think permitless carry is going to pass.
Okay.
And I think that we're then going to have a renewed fight over open carry again.
Okay. So do you think it's going to pass because Florida was ready for permitless carry, or because somebody has a political agenda to show that they are Second Amendment friendly, or because they made a political campaign promise, or not that I'm drawing any corollaries, but...
Like most things in politics, I think it comes down to all of the above. Different people have each group has its own interest, and it's trying to see its interest advanced. Some people will vote for it because they truly believe in the right. Some people will vote for it because they're scared not to. Some people will vote for it because they're trying to overcome the bad vote they made back in the Parkland days.
Okay.
I mean that's the reality. There's a lot of reasons to vote for the bill, and the same thing with the people voting against it. Some of them are voting against it because they truly are anti-gun. Some people will vote against it because they have a misconception about law-abiding gun owners carrying firearms. And I say that's the biggest problem we've had with open carry, is certain businesses have become convinced they'll lose business if Florida has open carry, because they don't realize that it is the law in most of the states that most of our visitors come from.
Yeah, and that I heard that at the Freedom Festival or event, and it was like, that makes so much sense, where they're like, oh well, but obviously, their neighbor who is from New York is the one that's filling their head, and the one that came from Montana isn't, right? I mean, it's who are you listening to, and what slice of civilization are you benchmarking to?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that most of the people who are coming to Florida to visit certain theme parks and things from Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, they're not freaking out if they see open carry when they're here. They're not concerned that, oh my gosh, they're coming to a state with lots of concealed carry licenses means they're going to get shot. People from New York, people from Washington, D.C., they might have those type of misconceptions, not because they're anti-gun, but because they believe the media hype that they've heard. We heard it in '87, and I know y'all heard it in Ohio, because I had friends in Ohio when y'all passed concealed carry. There's going to be blood in the streets. Never happened. There's going to be shootouts in every car accident. Didn't happen. Road rage is going to become violent. It didn't happen. They make up these claims, and then when they don't come true, nobody remembers it 6 months later.
Exactly. But they made the claim, and if it does come true, they can be like, I said it. And if it doesn't come true, they're like, oh, well, things are just a little better than what we had anticipated it to be. So they don't get punished, and there is no downside for them being wrong on the sky is falling kind of a basis.
You got it, and that's where the problem comes in. Yeah, and I will give the media in Texas big credit, though. When Texas passed constitutional carry and all of the same claims about blood in the streets happened, they actually went back to law enforcement 6 months after the fact. Some of the Texas newspapers did, and asked the sheriffs, okay, sheriffs, y'all made these bad predictions. What happened? And the sheriffs had to admit that they had a slight increase temporarily in the number of 911 calls because people were like, oh, my gosh, there's a person with a gun. And so for a few months, they had a slight increase in 911 calls and the police having to inform people. But after that, it wasn't a problem. And that is what I got to give the Texas media credit. Texas newspapers, they did it right. They followed up and they reported. And I got to give the law enforcement in Texas credit. They admitted they were wrong. That's what's going to have to happen in more states.
And they gave them the benefit of the doubt, and they gave them the facts and the information. So, Eric, can you hang on while we take a commercial break? Because I'd like to talk about testifying in Tallahassee, because you were there, and I saw the pictures, and there was a row of demanding mommies. So we'll be back right after this.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seffacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, folks, we're back with our guest, Eric Friday. He's a lawyer extraordinaire out of the state of Florida who is working on taking concealed carry and turning it into permitless, constitutional-ish carry. So Eric, you went to Tallahassee to testify. So tell folks about how do you get to testify and how do you go about it and what was it like?
So in Florida, we have any citizen or anybody that wants to has a right to speak before the public notice and comment period of any legislative bill. If we're compensated in any way, such as even travel expenses or anything like that, or let's say somebody just puts you on a bus and pays for your travel up, you're supposed to be registered as a lobbyist in that case, but we know not everybody follows that rule. That's a rule that's only enforced against, those of us that believe in freedom. It's not enforced against the other groups. So I am a registered lobbyist. I work for Florida Carry, a state rights organization. And so they pay for me to go to Tallahassee and speak to legislators on behalf of Florida Carry and its members. And unfortunately, we only get a few minutes. Sometimes we get asked, if I get asked by a committee chair to come, I get more time because then I'm answering questions of the chair or of the committee members. But if I'm appearing just as a lobbyist and member of the public, generally we're limited to just a couple of minutes. But it says a lot to legislators that people who are there are the type of people who get more votes to the polls. People talk a lot about money in politics, but at the end of the day, money's only as good as the votes it buys or the advertisements that you get out to buy the votes. We, the people calling, emailing our legislators, that's what makes them know that we're going to vote next election. It's what makes them scared of us. And Paul Vallone of Grassroots North Carolina says, we've got to make sure even our friends know that we're willing to punish them if they don't vote right on guns.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and there is that, and it's punish them because we'll support someone else. They can't
Absolutely.
necessarily be considered our friend when we are a one-issue voter if they are voting the wrong way. I mean, if we're a one-issue voter and they vote in agreement with the demanding mommies or the Bloomberg bank account, then they're not our friend, and they need to know that.
And we just found out this week, unfortunately, that there is a well-known lobbyist in Tallahassee has now been hired by Bloomberg money, and he is one of Governor DeSantis's one of his $1 million bundlers. So we know that the Bloomberg money, the Everytown money, is now buying a lobbyist who is very well connected to the governor. Now, that doesn't mean that the governor is going to necessarily do what he asks, but we know that kind of money is coming into Florida now to fight against us, and we have to be prepared for it. And we have to make sure that the Republican Party of Florida upholds the National Republican platform to support constitutional carry.
Right. When you talk about them being, a multi-million-dollar bundler, what does that mean to the everyday person?
Well, so we have caps on how much you can contribute to a particular candidate in Florida, but a bundler can go out and collect, $2,500, for example, from a lot of people, or $1,000 from a lot of people, and say, hey, I've raised $1 million for this particular campaign. And when you have one person that raises that kind of money for a particular campaign by bundling a bunch of people's contributions together, the candidate presumes that person's going to be able to go back to those same people and get them to vote a certain way. He presumes that bundler is going to be able to influence that many people, and so the candidate starts listening to that bundler that's pulled all this money together, and it's perfectly legal. And I'm not suggesting there's anything untoward by having bundlers. We need them. They perform a function in the campaign process. But when it's somebody that's taking money from somebody like Bloomberg to lobby, we have to question whether the candidate is going to support what they've said in their campaign stump speeches, or are they going to support what the bundler tells them they need to support to keep the money flowing.
To keep the money flowing, because money is what keeps the wheels on the bus. You know,
Absolutely.
that this is a machine that runs on money, and for them, and their goal is to be elected, re-elected, to grow their level of where they're elected or their areas of influence. You know, there is no secret that Florida's governor is on the hot list or on the short list for running for president. Well, that takes a whole different level of money and support and backing than does running for governor, even though running for governor is not an inexpensive endeavor.
I mean, we're talking millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands. We're talking millions or tens of millions to make certain ambitions happen. And yeah, it's a shame that we've got to narrow it down to that. But the thing is, we the people can always beat those dollars with votes. If we the people are organized, we can beat dollars with votes every single time, because the dollar bill does not get a vote in the ballot box. The voters do.
No, and it's getting the information to those voters, because there's so many people who are like, I'm not political. Well, everybody ought to be to a point where they ought to be paying attention to who's making the decisions that are impacting the way you live, everything from gas tax to the condition of your roads, to what's happening in your schools, to the president. I mean, all of that is the way your business or your boss's business is run is all part of the process. So you sort of have to pay. I mean, every citizen should be paying attention to politics, at least at a local level, so they have an idea of what's happening in their communities.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get criticized a lot for being a single-issue voter, or people telling me my focus is too singular on Second Amendment issues and on gun rights and self-defense issues. And my response to them is, as long as I have my firearms rights, as long as I have the right to own and possess firearms, and as long as my fellow citizens have that right, we really do have the ultimate trump card on any other policies that are universally agreed or more universally agreed on. We have that trump card. That's why the Second Amendment is there, is for that trump card in the ultimate bad situation. So, you know, tell me that a candidate's going to vote against me on 10 other issues. I'm going to come back to, are they voting with me on guns? Because at the end of the day, if they vote with me on guns and they vote against me on 10 other issues, I can deal with those other 10 other issues in a later campaign. I can deal with those 10 other issues by gathering people together. If we lose our gun rights, we've lost everything.
Exactly. So the second defends the rest. There's no doubt about it. So, folks, Eric Friday, look him up. Look up Florida Carry and look up what's happening in Florida. Kind of keep an eye on it, because it's getting exciting and things are happening. Thanks, Eric. We'll see you around.
Thanks, Amanda.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Well, folks, we are back, and we have a different guest on for the next segment, and that would be a familiar face and a familiar voice, which is Rob Morse from Rob Morse of the Self-Defense Gun Stories, and the Rob Morse that Eric Friday just said that he wanted to be on Rob's show. Rob, I dashed his hopes and told him that there was no way that you would have him on your show. I just want to let you know I headed that off.
But together we might both end up on the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society. Eric would be a great guest there. I'm surprised you let me on, because I am such a fan of Eric's. I go, why didn't you just have him on for the hour and throw me off? Thank you for your poor judgment.
Thanks for that. So now you were at the Freedom Fest with us. So there was a big group that kind of converged upon Florida the first weekend of the month of February to find out what's happening in Florida and to be supportive. So before we move on to other topics, why don't you fill folks in on what your observations of that weekend event were?
I think everyone should, if they can, go to the local gun advocate group's annual meeting. You will come away energized, enthused, recharged, inspired. All right, if your state doesn't have it, go to a nearby state. I ended up going to the SAF convention in Florida once I lived in Louisiana. Shame on me that it took me so long. And now I go to the one in Florida because those, you know what? It reminds us what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
So that's invaluable.
I love the fact that there's folks that come from all over the country to go to that. And so there's probably as many out-of-staters at that event as they have in-staters.
Well, when you include Alabama and Georgia, sure, yeah.
Well, yeah.
A couple-hour drive. On the other hand, we did have people from California fly in. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and Virginia and Ohio and Louisiana and Texas. You know,
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's they're not exactly over the line in the Florida-Georgia line kind of thing.
Right. Since I happen to be in the neighborhood 3,000 miles away, I thought I'd drop in.
I just
Isn't
thought,
that
and I
cool?
had some spare time.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So so I have been at the Western Orlando Firearms Training, you know, the location of where our families train, for the week, and it's been amazing because I'm here with I was here for the DC Project Advisory Board meeting, and the DC Project, let's just say that the DC Project has existed since 2016. And we put together a 5-year plan that is phenomenal. And I am so energized and invigorated for where we're going to go for the next 5 years. And then the folks came in for Ambassadors Academy, and that's a whole nother level of invigoration. So it has been a fabulous Second Amendment, like a week and a half, all just kind of immersed in guns and ranges and training and stuff. It's just amazing.
Well, okay, no, it's not a tactical. It's not TACCON. I mean, you made it sound like that. And tell me the difference between Ambassadors Academy and TACCON, because they're not close.
They're not the same. So Ambassadors Academy is actually, they're teaching you skills for your own self-defense, and that's the fun part of the week.
Right.
And then they're teaching you how to do an interview and how to be an advocate and how to testify and how to do a pitch sheet and what your Instagram page ought to look like and how do you get the word out and how do you interview with somebody, and so how do you set up your camera? I mean, we've been on enough of the video podcasts to see where people fail in just simple things like, where is your camera and how is it set up, and are they looking up your nose, and you know what's on your background, just everything in the care and feeding of looking the part. That these folks are the industry experts, but they have that credibility. It's theirs to give away. And they give it away by not looking professional and acting professional and understanding how to get the reach. And so this is what that school is about, is teaching how to maximize the efforts that they're already making.
There are things you'd say to Robert when you're next to him in a commercial, because I've sat in a hotel room with you and Robert when you're doing your show, that you don't want to go out on the air. So
Correct.
there are things that are true and things we put on the air, and sometimes the two shouldn't meet. Yes, I understand entirely.
And sometimes, it can be true and still not go on the air. I mean, that's it. It's not that it's wrong, but it's either not in our wheelhouse, or it's what message do you really want to convey, and those types of things. And so that's what we're teaching them, how to tighten up. I mean, some of these guys and gals have amazing stories, yet they're not good storytellers. So their story gets lost in the and thens when it shouldn't. And so we're teaching them how to tighten that all up.
You now take an active role in politics, and that's a different hat than you wear at the range, that you wore when you were running your gun shop, that you wore in the office later. So the odd thing about being a representative, sometimes you speak for Buckeye Firearms in your home state of Ohio. Now, they have their own staff, but okay, you can say you should talk to them. Well, really, what do they say? You explain. You can put the reasonable face on those statements and be a good advocate. That's why I think the Ambassadors Academy is so invaluable.
It really is. And what's amazing to me was that there was actually people registered to come, because it's really a pretty small, select school. And there were people who were registered to come, and then they were like, yeah, I have something else, and they had other opportunities or whatever. I have no idea why they, within the last week, you know, a couple of them were like, yeah, I'm not coming. And it's like, there are people who would, you know, give their pinky fingernail to be able to be here, you know? And so, and it's like, and you're just kind of walking away from it. I don't understand it.
But you know what? I think you have to charge more so that doesn't happen.
So charge more, and it may be, I don't know. You know, you sit and look at it, and it's like, you know, you want this to be, and you come on site here, and you're on site. So this place has got, it's got housing, it's got a kitchen, and it's just amazing. And then when you see how these gals grow, and it's guys and gals, but primarily this time, there are you know, more gals to guy ratio by a large percentage. And when you see how they grow and expand, and the smiles on their faces when they take their flashlight and they defend themselves, it's just you can't hardly even talk about it in a way to where somebody who's not experienced it can pick up on it.
Well, okay. Here are people who may be extraordinary in their narrow field. Mm-hmm. What that probably means is they were good at taking instruction and sensitive about their performance. They paid attention, and now they're willing to humble themselves, come back to class, and go, "Oh, there's more I have to learn." You know, learning's pretty fun. Okay, teach me. Mm-hmm. And because they have such expertise, they're usually a pretty quick study.
That, and the other part that I think is great is because they're all embedded in here together, is that they all come with a chunk of knowledge that augments and assists the instructors. So they're experts in their field, and there's a spot where the instructor hands over the classroom to them. You know, it's like, okay, well, this is what they do and do well. And our instructors are really good about like pulling out stuff that people have done in shootings, you know, professional shooting or videos or Instagram or whatever, wherever they're trying to get their message, or they gave a speech on the Capitol lawn, and so they'll pull that up and say, here's what you did well, look at this, everybody, here's what you could do better, look at this, everybody, you know, and this is how we all grow, and it's amazing, and it's great. It really is. I think I said amazing more than once. We'll go there.
You might have. So, you might have. I think I did hear that.
Yeah, I am one of the biggest fans. There's no doubt about it. So let's talk a little bit, Rob. I actually brought you on not to talk about Ambassadors Academy, but there we go. To talk a little bit about what's happening with the ATFs and the ATFs attacking FFLs and states going after the ATF, and where do you think it all is? You're one of my deep thinker friends, and I wanted to get your feel for some of this. And as is Rob Candle. So this is like a three-part story here.
Isn't there a break like 30 seconds from now?
There is a break in just a few seconds. So we've got 30 seconds to go, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about the ATF and the ATF going after FFLs and trying to shut them down and trying to put the FFLs out of business. So we'll be back. We'll be back with those things and with Rob Morse. And frankly, folks, if you don't know who Rob Morse is, you want to check him out because he does a little show called the Self-Defense Gun Stories. He calls it a snack food of podcasts, but it is actually in the top 0.5% of all podcasts in the world. So we'll be back right after this with Rob Morse.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, folks, we are back, and with us we have Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories. He is a frequent contributor in Bill Frady's Lock and Load Radio and on the Polite Society podcast, among other places. So you'll see him. He writes, and you'll see his publications in AmmoLand and on his blog. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening with the ATF. So I'm going to start with Rob Morris. What is your thoughts on what's going on, and are we going to win at any point?
Well, this is what's fascinating. The ATF didn't change the rules and tell us what to do. An insider leaked the rule changes. The ATF has set up requirements that go way beyond the law, so that gun shops can have their license pulled if they engage in absolutely legal behavior. For example, the ATF has so many days to come back with a background check. If they don't, the gun stores are allowed to issue their firearm. No news is good news. Except the ATF said, yeah, if you do that, we can pull your license. Wait a minute. And then they have announced what they call a zero-tolerance policy for paperwork errors. Look, it's not like John Washington, I called him Joe Smith. It's like, oh, on his birth date, he put in dashes rather than slashes on the date, or he abbreviated the word street to ST. So, this is what I thought about it, Amanda. How many mistakes should we allow government officials at the ATF to make before they are fired and brought up on criminal charges? Like, okay, so when they improperly abbreviate the address or date or phone number where they stayed as they were out of the office, okay, that's criminal in my mind. I think those field reports should match the same accuracy that we get from gun shop owners. How about their time cards?
Because they're going after gun shop owners, and then to the public, they say, well, they had all these errors, and so the forms were all incomplete or this. And it was like, I didn't write Ohio, I wrote OH. Everybody in Ohio knows that they'll finish it with IO, right? That's how that goes.
hence the joke. But
yes.
It's crazier than that. Suppose there are people who are marginal FFLs. They call them kitchen table FFLs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to be a gun shop. Now I sell to a few friends. What I do is I do gun repairs. People bring them in. I fix them. Okay. I need an FFL to do that. Each of those transactions goes in my bound book. I have to list office hours. Well, this might be a second job. It's something I do on the evenings and weekends. So I said usual hours by appointment only. The ATF will pull your license if they come by the day and you're not there.
Yes.
That's insane.
So here's the other thing, and Rob Campbell, did you see this where the ATF has redefined, this is another one of those, but they redefined what you can do, who can shoot a Class 3 weapon. So we all know that you have to have a tax stamp, so a $200 tax stamp for a Class 3 weapon, and but you and the tax stamp and all the paperwork could go to the range, and your friends could shoot it as long as you were there and the paperwork is there and the firearm was there. Now they're saying that only the person listed on the tax stamp can shoot it. This is another redefinition of something that has been an interpretation or a rule forever. So, Rob Campbell, what's your thoughts?
Well, I was looking at some records, and right now I can't find the current number, but I thought it was like 45,000 FFLs were currently available to the general public. And it's 2020, they said it was 52,799, and in the highest point in the last 40 years was 1992. There was 248,155. And when the crime bill went into effect in 92, by 1995, they had lost 100,000. They were down to 158,000 FFLs in the country at that point.
So gun shops couldn't make a viable go about it because they couldn't sell certain firearms?
Well, sometimes it's the fact that you're in a business because you only deal with one kind of a gun mainly or something, and if they outlaw that, now there's no reason for you to be in business. Also,
well, look at what's happening in Oregon.
Right, in some locations, they changed the location and stuff, and you can't have a license at that point. I know when we first applied for ours years ago, you had to have a storefront, you had to have all kinds of different things, the local zoning, everybody. There was 100 things that had to be lined up to before they would even issue you the license. And then once they did, if you didn't have like a phone book ad and the storefront and all this stuff, you couldn't even buy from the distributors anyhow. So it didn't do you much good to have the license.
There's a little bit of all of that. So Rob Morse, what is your thoughts on this Class 3 stuff?
You know what this is? Local machine gun shoots are getting huge attraction. Not only, and here's where it's not just that citizens can go, like Freedom Fest that you visit up in Pennsylvania. The media goes and they go, really? We outlawed this? This is so much fun. No. This is a public move. They want to make sure that contemporary firearms are hard to see, hard to touch. They're afraid that freedom will spread.
That's
a good
it.
point.
It is freedom is a communicable disease, and when you see it, you want it.
Exactly. Oh God, you should be on the radio. You said that so well.
I'll try. I'll work on that. I will work on that. So, so tell folks a little bit about your show, Self-Defense Gun Stories, because it is so much fun, and I am spending some time with one of your other instructors, and we're comparing Rob Morse notes here in at WAFT.
You've been with other instructors. You're at a training class. You're loading magazines, getting ready for the next session up at the firing line, and one of you goes, "Did you hear, Grandma down the street did a pretty good job defending herself. Isn't that cool?" "Yeah, it's cool, it's cool." And one of the instructors says, "Yeah, but did Grandma use best practice?" And all of a sudden you realize the media never told us what we should do. They might just be telling us when we get lucky. So let's take the news and let's say, oh, these are the common stories. Should we really run out in the middle of the living room and get in a gun battle with an intruder? Are there better things, particularly if we have family there? How much better would we be if we thought about it for just a few minutes?
If we'd planned ahead, before it happened, so we had a plan, that would be good. Because shooting it out while you're in your tighty whities is always not the best plan.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell I'm the homeowner because I'm out in front in a bathrobe, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and a gun in my hand. That's probably, at least he was wearing a hat. Oh, well.
It's probably my house, right? Exactly.
Probably.
So you have, how many instructors do you have that you rotate through? So if people are listening to Self-Defense Gun Stories, by the way, that they can find on pretty much any podcast vehicle that they gather or download their podcast, how many different instructors do you have so that they start to get to know the personalities of the instructors that you interact with?
We go through 6. I just added a 7th because I'm asking people to give up an evening to do this interview with me. They have busy lives. Sometimes we can't get them all each week, but there are 6. And the beauty of that is they have different points of views. They have different styles. I'm so lucky to learn from them.
Isn't that, I love that part. It's because this person thinks this way, this one's conservative, more conservative. You've got females and you've got males and, and different people, one, train differently, and 2, have different strengths, literally different strengths, and that those features play into what they do. Well, Rob, we're right at the top of the hour. I want to thank you very much. So, folks, check out Rob Morse, Self-Defense Gun Stories. Rob Campbell, we're going to be doing this as a unique show split next week also before I hit back to the Ohio state line. Folks, I will check back in, and we'll talk to you next week. See you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.